What's up, guys? I'm going to show you how to fix 3 problems you might be having with your Holley Super Sniper, or maybe even your fast, easy EFI that I've had problems with. The first one is the running rich. Second one, idle surging. Third would be this kind of backfiring and RFI issue. Probably wondering why you listen to me. I wouldn't, I'm retarded. But I fixed it, and so maybe it'll help you. So before I start, I'll show you what I was working on that I've had all these problems with. This is a 383 swapped into a 2nd gen RX-7. It's still a work in progress. It's got the Hyper Spark ignition and nothing special about this. First problem. All right, that would have just been the O2 issue. So the running rich issue for me was just really hard to start at first. Tons of smoke, terrible fuel economy, loss of power, just absolutely running rich. You could drive it like that, but it's not great, and I'll show you how I fix it. Now, if you've already read your instructions or probably talked to tech support before you bothered with this video, you already know it says that you have to have the ECU power directly to the battery. So I've got it running all the way to the back, directly to the whatever terminal that it needs to go to. And that's good as long as the rest of your car is grounded correctly. So I'll show you, I haven't finished tucking all this wiring yet, but to get the good grounds, here's what I did. I ran the negative straight from the battery all the way to this junction, and from this junction I just used all the grounds that would go to the block, to the heads and the chassis, all right here. And I think that was one of the major contributors to getting this problem to stop. I did at the same time go with the MagnaCore KV85 coil wires, because you know that's how it stopped a lot of EMI problems or RFI problems. I don't know which thing, you know, solved what at what time, but that was something that I did together, and I think it was a good call. And and that'll be explained in the following portion of the video. So after you got the ECU wired in correctly for the power, you got to make sure that your alternator works right. Start by testing your battery. It's reading about 12.7, seems about right. So you can see, charging at 14.7, it's making it to about 14.5 at the battery and 14.2 at the computer. So a little bit of loss, but it's well over the stable 12 volts that you need. If you talk to Holley, they're going to ask you exactly what it's reading, and if you're not getting at least 13 volts, 13.5, I would be concerned. In the 14s, you're good. If you are having problems, I'd probably go through and check your power wires. For example, I got this 200 amp inline fuse, and when it was installed, the hardware was not installed the same way. So there's a washer underneath one nut and a washer, then the fuse itself was above a washer, then the nut on the other side, and it made it so the fuse was not flat against the blocks at the ends of each wire. And I think I had lost about half a volt just from that. So take your multimeter and see where the first drops occur, anywhere from the power source to the battery back. That would be how you could find that. Now, if all the electrical stuff's good, you still have that problem, it's most likely your exhaust. So Holley's instructions say that you need no leaks upstream of the O2 sensor and none 18 inches behind the O2 sensor. It's pretty standard for every ECU. My Haltech's instructions say the same thing. So My mistake, which made it take a long time to fix this problem, was online people were saying to use a smoke tester and just smoke test the exhaust. Didn't work. So first thing, if you use the smoke tester, you got to take off the muffler, or just disconnect your exhaust somewhere close to the O2 sensor and do it, because the muffler will leak. It doesn't matter if it's new or not, it's just going to leak. I didn't find any leaks until I took off the exhaust, went to a dark room and shined a light into the exhaust. Then you can find pinhole leaks. Those pinhole leaks are what cause oxygen to enter the exhaust, and then the ECU tries to correct your lean condition with too much fuel, and then there's just a cycle and it starts learning that way. So you got to take the exhaust off. And once you got the exhaust off and you know there are no pinhole leaks and you're reassembling and you're using V-band clamps like I am, after you torque the nut on the V-band clamp, you want to tap around it with a dead blow and then keep torquing it until you get the appropriate torque reading that your V-band clamp is set for. And you might even want to drive it around a little bit, get it heated up, get it cooled back down, and check it again and do the dead blowing around the clamp again until it settles. Another problem that I had was I had these headers. They were used and they weren't completely flat. So I had blown out, I used RTV as a gasket. I'm pretty new to the small block world. And they weren't flat, left too much of a gap. You want to make sure with a machinist rule that these are actually flat. And as far as gaskets go, I've had better luck with the metal gaskets than using RTV. It's hard to get a straight answer on that. Another problem, now that I've got these straightened out metal gaskets, before I was using stage 8 hardware with these locking mechanisms here. And that's great, you can get the locker, which is this crescent moon shape underneath the clip, and it cannot turn against the header. But the problem is you have to get it lined up perfectly, because it lines up in the shape specifically of the bolt. So you cannot just throw it on any way that you want, unfortunately. So you have to loosen it up or tighten it too much in order to get that locker on. And so now you've got a looser bolt that won't move. What's the point? So if you get all that done, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have your problem fixed. The only weird problem else that I had in the first place is when I first put the motor in, and it was running rich because it showed out in the O2, but it also wasn't starting exactly. Valve lashing. You got to have all your mechanical situations already fixed. Like, you can't have bad valve lashing and expect Holley to fix it for you. So the next problem, idle surging. This was super annoying. It happened after I put my Hyperspark on. Couldn't get any answers from Holley, so I'll just show you what I did. So you already know you got to follow the instructions on setting your idle, and you got to keep adjusting your TPS and resetting it. If you change the throttle blades too much, it says you just got to recycle the battery and do it again. So just do it again. However, what I learned was, and actually this was from a one Holley tech that was smart after I got ignored for about 5 weeks. If you check your secondary springs with the car off, they will return shut just fine. But you could be at idle and you could be pulling enough vacuum that the blades will not return closed because the spring cannot overcome it. So what I did is right there, took a zip tied it around, and then took the zip tie, wrapped it around the barrel, and then pulled straight up until it got one extra turn on the spring. I just used some needle nose pliers and put it back captively where it's sitting right now. That added a little bit more spring tension to close it against the vacuum at idle. So give that a shot. Also, make sure, because a lot of your cars, I'm assuming, are like mine, where maybe the motor doesn't belong in the car in the first place, or maybe you just have an old muscle car that you wanted EFI swap in. Either way, make sure your throttle cable is not getting binded somewhere. So I had to put a new bracket right there to make sure that the throttle cable is pulling straight back. Very important. All right, if you go to tuning, go to system, and you go to outputs, you can see this fan off arrangement. So if you do not have a E fan that is being controlled here, apparently sometimes you can get a surge if you have it set up like it should be, but there's no fan to control. So I just put really high temperatures for it to turn on and to turn off at very high temperatures. Finally, last thing to check, PCV. All right, so I have an EMI Wagner tunable PCV, and if it's incorrectly set up according to the directions anyway, it can cause idle surging by not going from its cruise mode back down to its idle mode. It's got some springs and some balls in there that kind of open and close these ports. You can adjust that with an Allen key on, you can see right here, these two threaded areas. So as you make your different adjustments, either by wrapping the spring, changing the TPS, whatever, you probably need to go back and tune them all in a little bit of a cycle. If you're gonna get a PCV like this, just know that in order for the size of the vacuum line to work as the directions demand, you're gonna have to use this front vacuum source and get a plug for it right there. All right, that should fix your idle surge problem. And lastly, if you get the backfiring problem or any other EMI, RFI problem, for me, first, to make sure it was a problem with EFI or with your EFI's RFI problems, because mine started once I got the Holley Spark ignition or Hyperspark ignition. You just gotta check your data log. So if you want to log something, go to logging, start log, and when you're done, stop log. Too easy. So once you look at your data log file, this was mine when I was having RFI issues, you can see how the time starts at like -20 seconds. Well, that ain't right. And you can see that the lines are going straight up and down. There are multiple blue lines for map sensor. There's multiple red lines for RPM. I can turn some more on. You can see if there's more crazy lines. Yep, you can see injector has multiple lines. You can see a straight line there. Getting goofier and goofier, right? There's AFR. Now it's just getting crazy. If your data log looks like that, then it's RFI. It's just that simple. Now to fix it, all I did was get some RFI shielding, and I just wrapped some wires until it went away. Now I mentioned before, the magnet core wires, they help. So I already was set up for my previous problem. If you're having RFI problems, I would just go with it. I don't know. Or you could just figure out first if this fixed it. But I imagine all the problems started with this right here. Just too close. This is a V1 sniper, they're not hardened. The version 2 Super Snipers apparently have more hardening against it. So that's literally all you gotta do. Put your data logger back in afterwards and see what you get. That's it. Well, I hope this helps. Not an expert, this will work for me. I don't know, maybe you got some information to let me know what to fix. I got a lot of wiring to tuck and finish on this car, so hopefully that'll help as well.